So we're here at Zudu's Game Park in Tasmania, and I'm hanging out with my good buddy Andy, who is a lion handler, and he's been spending the last few months getting to know and connecting with two young white lions that have come over from Africa to live here in Hobart. And today we have the gift of going into the enclosure, almost all the way into the enclosure, and hanging out with the lions with Andy.
So right now we're in Richmond, we're at a place called Zudu, and this is the little enclosure within the enclosure. So the main enclosure is behind us here on the left hand side, and we're in a little self-preservation lock so that they can't actually get to us, but we can get pretty close to them.
And why are we here instead of in the enclosure today?
Well, there was a little bit of an accident a couple of days ago, and what happened was I was on top of the box there playing with the female, Kiara, and the male Bakari came over wanting a bit of a play, and he was a bit feisty, a bit over affectionate.
Yeah.
He saw he didn't want to miss out on any of the attention, and he barged in with his head, and I couldn't actually stop myself. I was on the corner of the box, which was not the ideal place to put myself, and the Kiara's body was on top of my legs, so I couldn't actually push myself. So I'm sort of trying to push him away with my head, so come on, don't be cheeky. And then he actually grabbed hold like a bear hug and pushed out with his back legs, and so I went toppling straight over the box, landed straight on my back, which I spent the next 9 hours in intensive care and in the emergency ward, testing me for x-raying whether I'd broken my back, my thoracic spine, my neck, and it wasn't too much fun.
But you haven't, so you're in sort of quarantine right now.
Yeah, that's right. So there was no form of aggression at all in the cat. There was not any signs of, when he did that, of malice. In fact, he was more confused after the event when he looked at me. So, and when I've seen them here today, it's clear that they're very incredibly affectionate. They're a little bit confused as to why we can't actually go in there.
Yeah, they keep sort of calling you out, calling us out there.
That's right. So yeah, it is. It's a little bit heart-wrenching to not be able to go in there, but I'm really confident I will be able to soon.
Yeah. Tell me.
With this, it actually comes back to almost an original vision that I had in my head when I was, my earliest memory when I was about 18 months of age. I'd go to sleep at night, and it was actually quite an opposite vision than sort of what's manifested. But when I'd go to sleep at night, I was actually terrified of lions, and I'd go to sleep, and when you have the pillow against your head, you can actually hear your heartbeat. And now in my 18-month-old head, I used to think it was a lion with its footsteps coming to run up and get me. I was so terrified of them. And of course, when you get more scared, more fearful, the louder and the faster the footprints are, dom dom, this deep resonance of the drum. And it got to the point where I got so scared one time that when I looked, and this was probably sometime in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning or something like that, sharing a room with my older brother, I used to call it a cartoon character lion. It's almost like a spirit lion came into the room, really clear, so vivid. I can actually recall everything in the room and where it was, and the expressions of the lion and the expressions of my brother's face to the day. And it growled at me, and somehow I knew that I had to growl back. And when I did, with all of my might and all of my self-belief, it actually dissipated. But it just very peacefully just dissipated. And my brother was sort of looked at me like, what are you doing? Like really confused, woke up in the morning, what the hell am I roaring? And I kept having these visions probably till I was about 10 years of age, where I'd just sometimes wake up in the night and I'd look out and I'd see lions, and I'd see them sort of like in this park-like environment. First of all, I was actually travelling through South America, and when I was in I was on the border of Brazil and Bolivia, and I saw a notice on the notice board of the backpackers saying volunteers wanted in this animal sanctuary. And I thought, okay, well that sounds great. I love animals. What does it mean? Maybe some monkeys or something. And then I ended up going out there, this really quite rural place of Bolivia. And as soon as I arrived, I was talking to another gringo, as they call it, which is another Westerner, about what goes on here. And then a couple of minutes later, this other Westerner came yelling out, "Oh, Wara's escaped, Wara's escaped." I'm like, who the hell's Wara? And I looked, and he was this puma, just literally walking straight, 10 meters away, straight past me, within a meter or two of my feet, looked me in the eye, and then kept going straight through to the other side of the jungle and just went into the thick undergrowth. And all these people chasing, I'm like, oh my God, what am I saying here? This is just surreal. And they caught Wara 8 kilometres down the road, pretty much through the scrub. It was quite an ordeal to catch her. And the next morning they're like, okay, Andy, we want you to work with Wara. I'm like, well, what do you mean? What does that entail? And so they said, okay, what we try to do is bring it down to the side of the cage. You have to clip the end of the rope here from the carabiner right onto on the collar there, and then bring her outside the enclosure, and then you take her for a walk through the jungle and down to the river for a swim. And I'm like, oh, what, you joking, right? So and this cat was a really wild cat, very unpredictable, just been caught, very had quite an ordeal. So it was very, very moody. It was going from one second quite affectionate, realising we weren't there to hurt it, to all of a sudden, calls out, and I was just with one other Westerner who'd been there for 2 weeks before.
And he was training you.
He was training me, so, it was, quite a wild experience. And then a couple of weeks later, he was a 120-kilo jaguar that no one wanted to work with, and the opening came up, and I'm like, yeah, why not? I mean, how often do you get to work with a jaguar and do the same thing, and take it down to the river for a swim, and when it comes back up, dry its coat and get a bit of a jaguar lick, and have that, walk it like a dog. I mean, it was just incredible.
Wow.
And so after that, when I came back from South America, my father had recorded the Lion Man series on TV, and I'm just sort of watching this guy, just thinking, this guy is crazy. This is pretty mad. This is unbelievable what he's doing, but something captivated me so much that I actually wrote an ex-girlfriend who I hadn't seen for probably about 7 years, and I knew that for the last 5 years she'd been living on the North Island of New Zealand, and that's all I knew. I didn't know where. And obviously North Island's quite a big space.
Yeah.
And I said, well, listen, I really want to come and visit you because I've heard about this Lion Man Park. I just want to go and see it, check it out. And she wrote back saying, well, I've received a job in the office there last week. And I'm like, okay, no way. Can you get me some volunteering work? And she shrugged it off. She thought, oh, okay, hundreds of people want to volunteer here or play with the cats, no different than anyone else. And a few months later, my parents were sending out a Christmas newsletter of what everyone in the family had done for the year. And of course, there's me with a picture of walking this jaguar, and she's like, oh, no way, this is too crazy. Craig Bush, the Lion Man, was looking for a big cat handler right there and then. I pretty much got the green light. I quickly sold my car. A week later, I was over there and in with, huge up to 250 kilogram, big, white lions, white tigers, you name it. There was everything there. So up to 42 cats.
Wow.
So
far out. Yeah,
and then my journey led me to Tiger Temple in Thailand, where I was working mostly with wild Asiatic lions. Asiatic lions that have been their parents shot, taken through from northwest India, where they come from, right through China to northern Laos, captured there, and then basically, what do we do with these lions? Threw them to Tiger Temple. And these lions, very, very aggressive, very wild instinct. To make a long story short, the abbot, who's the head monk, asked me if I could work with these guys, and initially I said, no way, this is insane. They're far too aggressive. They're going to maul me if I do work with them. But he kept asking me and kept saying, well, I really believe that you can do it. I have no doubts you can do it. And this guy meditates 10 hours a day. And I thought, okay, maybe he knows something I don't. And I trusted his instinct rather than my own.
Yeah.
So I decided to take it seriously. Initially, I was sleeping outside the enclosures. But even to get to that point, I was about 30 metres away from their enclosure, and I'd have to turn my back literally right to the other way, and I couldn't look them in the eye, and I'd be like, okay, it's all right, guys, I'm not here to hurt you, and just glance out the corner of my eye and slowly, step by step, really so slowly, okay, tell them I'm going to move, step back like this until I was actually able to get close enough to them, and then I slept outside their enclosure, kept communicating with them through that way, to the point where I was actually able to move inside their enclosure and slept with them day and night, and just had all their toys around me, had them sleeping either side, and just a really incredible connection. So that led me to the orangutans in Borneo, and I spent quite a few months out there, and then back to Australia, and here I am working for the first time on my own continent with the cats that I love the most. So that's it in a nutshell.
That's awesome.
So I just think that the heart connection that you have with these is probably the most sincere and the deepest and fullest heart connection that I've ever had really with anything. I mean, when I used to greet them, I used to actually do what they do with each other's. Now what they're doing is they're blinking, but it's not a blink like it just in whole eyes closed. What you're actually doing is you're drawing attention from your head into your heart with total surrender, and you bring it out again, and they really see that and they really feel that. It's the ultimate expression of respect. It'd be great if there was some symbolism in human. We can respect as like the Caribbean, bro, respect, man, or whatever it is. But to really just like, yes, I see you, I respect you. It's a beautiful thing, and I know when I'm away from these guys, I feel it. I feel it in my heart. I can feel when they're thinking about me. I can feel when they're missing me, and you certainly feel it when you come in the morning. I mean, that's your heart going there. Those guys can feel your heartbeat from 100 meters away.
Wow.
So whether you're loving them, whether you're fearful of them, whether you've got stuff going on in your own world, they just see it. They feel your heart. I'd say they really feel your heart, but they see into your visual thoughts as well. So they're just the all-seeing, all-pervasive, majestic creature, I think.
And how have you used your understanding of their ability to sort of transfer thoughts visually in the work that you do with them?
Well, it's really about the main thing I do is, how do you respond to me? How do you interact with me? How can we have this interaction safely so that you're not going to play the same way in affection you do with each other? Because the way they play with each other is pretty hard. And they've got thick hides, they've got big teeth and decent claws, and if they're going to play the same way, I'm going to be in a bit of trouble, because we've got tissue paper skin and pretty small bones. So that's the most important thing, is really teaching them to be gentle, and teaching them even how much they can bite. Even in their affection, I'm happy for them to bite me and put my hands in my mouth and put my head right up close to them and all that sort of stuff. That's not a problem, but they need to know, okay, well, I can be gentle here. When it gets to that point, So there's a lot of that visual communication. There's also, if I want to call them over, often I'll just have that in my head. Or
just seeing them coming over to you.
That's right. Or maybe I'll have some other thing that I want them to get. I know with the Asiatic lions, it used to be the point where I could actually imagine them possibly getting this toy here, and maybe in the bedroom where I stay, I've got 50 toys, all sorts of random bits. I call this a toy because it's something they can chew, and they love plastic and all sorts of stuff. And maybe I'll hide this underneath the jacket I've got there. But in my head I'll visualize, I'll take like a picture, snap picture, okay, there it is, it's there, it's underneath the jacket with the lunchbox behind it, got the bed over here, and I'll take the visual imprint in my mind, and then I'll go and I'll actually look right into the lion's eyes, or actually just above, and I'll see him look right into this space here and actually capture that vision, and then and go off and do it. And then I often would go to the female and, okay, now I want you to have a bit of a play wrestle, or give him lots of love, and give your brother a kiss. She'd do that, she'd see that, and she'd be all loving and affectionate with each other. So it was a great way, especially with affection as well. Just showing that that's the way, and that's the way to interact. And So, you know, they're looking at us now, and they're also reading what's going on, and how we're communicating with words is not really what they're understanding. They're understanding the visual imagery and
just the energy exchange.
Yeah.
How do you think? I mean, it's an amazing thing to consider. Like we talk about these things, this kind of energetic transfer and transfer of thoughts, as though it's like really amazing. But it really is our most natural way to communicate, isn't it? And it's just a way that we've forgotten.
Totally.
And these amazing beings are, in a way, they're kind of just a doorway for us to remember, like what is probably our most natural way of connecting and communicating. And it's kind of like giving us a doorway to being able to see each other or sense each other's energy in a deeper sense than we normally do in the surface world.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just the world that they live in. And probably most animals, or I don't know if most animals, but there's a few animals out there that seem to have that just deep sense of connection for energy.
Exactly.
Probably most.
Fine-tuned, yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. And I think it is definitely possible with humans. I know that I've experienced with people that I've been really, really close to and connected with on a very deep level. And it is the most clearest communication you can possibly have. I think with humans, we rely so much on words. We rely a lot on words, on body language, on trying to get around what we're trying to say using the limitations of language. And I think the verbal language has a lot of limitations in what you're trying to express. And there's lots of different understandings and that you can come from the same sentence, depending on the person's subjective opinion on what those words mean, what those labels mean. So there can be miscommunications, can be wires crossed very easily, I think, in verbal communication. Whereas when you're actually seeing the clear message as a visual and as an energetic, it's like energy doesn't lie. It's so pure and it's so clean and it's so true. It's actually the truest expression of yourself. And when they see it and they communicate that way, that's exactly what I feel. I just feel it's the most truest, deepest connection that I can possibly have, and deepest relationship, because there is the truest, highest sense of communication. There's no filters, there's no words to distract you from what the truth is. Exactly. I like to imagine that, that every animal, us included, has a specific piece to play in this sort of overall fabric, and that in a way, each of the animals are different reflections of different aspects of us. So that if we could plug into the wisdom of each of the animals in that spiral, then we would actually find our complete self in a way. What would you say are some of, or one of, or a couple of the primary gifts that the essence and the energy of the lions bring? It's funny, I've never really thought about it in that way, but when I think about it, probably the sense of family almost, and not just blood family. I'm just talking about real family and communionship and companionship and that real sense of community. I think it's, that's a really beautiful quality. Obviously living in pride, but it's something deeper than just that generic sense of community. It's something almost like community of the heart. Community of the heart, where that's really the way that we connect. That's the way to be with each other and to live courageously. These lions are just like the most courageous, noble animals, and they have no inhibitions with loving. That's what's so beautiful. No inhibitions whatsoever. The lion heart is just like, it's so open. You just look at them now, loving each other as we're talking about this, and giving the female a big lick and a kiss on the ears, and they feel it, when you talk about it, and they respond as well, and it's so connected with that sense of community and open-hearted, and even now he's just sort of coming to look over, and maybe he's going to come over for a bit of a paddock and see we're talking about, because that is the highest, deepest sense of how to connect. Hey, big fella. Yes. Yeah, beautiful. It wasn't until I was actually working for Craig Bush and the Lion Man over in Zion Wildlife Gardens that I started to realise, hang on, I'm meant to start a park with these lions. It was just so clear. And it was just one moment of a thought, but that thought just had so much of an impact. It was just completely utmost conviction, no doubt in the world, this is what I'm meant to do. And everything in my journey has just been really incredibly synchronistic, and just really surrendering, trusting, and putting it out to the universe of what I can do and where I should go for this, and everything's just manifested itself perfectly. So so really the intention in a nutshell is to start a park where I can hopefully rehabilitate these guys back to the wild. So you start with captive born lions that have been rejected from their parents. So you hand raise them with the public. The public gets to take them on walks and stuff like that. So you've got funds coming in through the volunteer experience. Every morning, just on the first light, wake up in the morning, just like they would in their hunting, when they're hunting. And then the next stage of really trying to teach them how to hunt. When they're about 16, 18 months of age, once they're old enough to recognise that they're too big to be with the public, they've got the wild instincts really innately coming out now, teach them how to hunt, and then hopefully by the time they're 3 or 4, they'll be successful hunters. They won't need any supplementary food droppings, dropping off of food, so that we can help if they don't succeed in their hunting. And then hopefully by the next generations that are bred, we want to get those guys back into places in the wild where there has been lions before, so possible complete reintroduction back into the wild, and lions that haven't had that human contact at all. So that's the vision. I've got many other things working together with that, such as the humanitarian projects and really having people from around the world be able to do workshops and things like that, and really sort of generate such an inspiring place, so that it's not just about the animals and the lions and getting them back to the world. It's actually just about a place of union and of deeper spiritual growth, personal growth. So that's the ultimate vision in a nutshell.
Down the mountain, through endless time, sea of love, flowing miles and miles, beyond the clouds. Climb so high, meet the lady, angel of the world, and you know we are going round and round on the great earth mother.
Good, yeah. Oh, how's that?
It's really rough.
Yeah. 50 grit sandpaper time.
Oh man, I just got a tiger lick right across my temple. That's just absolutely magic. I'm not gonna wash this side of my head for a while.
Yeah.
Oh,
that was good.
Man, that is just magnificent.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mother Earth, thank you. We are your children, children of the future.